Hi guys and welcome to the video. Now I know I was supposed to have part 2 of how to be a standout player out today. Don't worry, I'm gonna have that probably out over the weekend, either on Saturday and Sunday. I want to do this video though, which is basically the 10,000 subscriber and 1 million views special. A lot of you have been asking me for like my soccer background, journey, whatever you want to call it, story. So I figured, you know what, that's what I'll make today for the 10,000 subscriber special. So I don't know how long this is going to be. If it gets really long, we'll do it in 2 parts and I'll release the next part next week. But we're just gonna, basically go over a few things because I think my story's quite interesting, and I think there are a lot of things that you can personally learn, or that you can learn from my personal story, especially from a lot of the mistakes that I made, which hopefully you can avoid so that it doesn't stunt your growth in the way it did mine, okay? Also, another reminder, you can still get these shirts. I think there's about 4 or 5 days available left. Remember, we're never doing these again. This is a 10,000 subscriber shirt. It's for all of you guys who have been at the channel basically from 10,000 or less subscribers, and I wanted to give you guys a limited edition shirt that I will never be making again. So click on the card that comes across if you want to buy one of those shirts. There'll be a link in the description as well. All right, guys, let's get right into it. So I don't really have a plan for this. I'm just kind of going to go through everything and see what happens. So we won't cover too much of my youth career or my childhood. I'll just kind of gloss over that quickly because there's not much to say. I was born in England in a place called Cambridge, which many of you may know because of the university there. More of a scholarly type place than a footballing place. But still, that's where I was born, and we lived in a place called Bishop Stortford, and it was clear from a young age that I had, a lot of passion towards soccer. There's videos of me as a kid in England just kicking a ball around even when I'm like 1 or 2. And apparently my parents told me I used to, before I could even walk, I would try and kick a ball by standing up. I would kick the ball and then fall on my ass. So, I thought that was pretty funny. But when I was about 3 or 4 years old, we moved to the States. That's where really a lot of my soccer development began. So it was clear from a pretty early age I was a very talented player. I definitely had some ability about me. I could do a lot of things just kind of naturally that other kids that I was playing with were not able to do. I was definitely, one of the players that when I was 5, 6, 7 that you'd pick out and be like, okay, he's one of the better players here. I became pretty aware of this, and that actually might have been a really bad thing for me. But, I became pretty aware of this early on. And I don't say it to be big-headed or egotistical. It actually applies to some of the things I'm going to say later. That's why I mention it. So basically, just kind of progress through the youth ranks. I'd usually play with players a year or 2 older than I was, just because the teams at my age level weren't always the best. So probably until about the age of 12, I played on teams that were older than me or higher level than I would normally play in if I was following my age group. And, it was a pretty normal youth career, I'd say. I did really well. Again, my talent was obvious. I'd score goals that, looking back, sometimes amazed me. I remember one in particular, I can't even describe it. It was in an indoor match, and I kind of did some weird reverse kick volley into the net when I was 10. And the thing about these things, when I was a kid, I didn't even think anything of them. It was always the parents and the coaches that were very impressed by a lot of what I did. But I used to think, oh, that's just what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to score. I'm supposed to play well. It just came so naturally to me that I didn't even see it as that good a thing. But I kept being told, you're really good. You got to make sure you're practicing, get better. But that's not where the main story starts. That's basically my youth career, and it was 13 or 14 when we get into high school and we move more into a higher level phase. Now, 13 was the last year for a while before I got on another club team. I don't think my parents were able to really take me to club teams between a certain number of years, so I wasn't really on a club team. I was just on a high school team. And my freshman year of high school, went pretty well. I was on the JV team. I kind of, flirted with being on the varsity team, but I was 5 foot nothing. I was tiny, small, and whenever I practiced with varsity, because they'd have some of the JV players come up and train with varsity sometimes or scrimmage with varsity, it was pretty evident that I wasn't going to be ready for the physicality of high school varsity soccer yet. I was too easily pushed off the ball. I definitely had the skill, the touch, and everything necessary. I'd even score some goals when I was coming up against varsity. But, I was very easily knocked off the ball. I was not able to hold on to it when I had pressure. If if I had space, I was good with it, but not if I had someone on me. So freshman year, I was on JV. I think I was either top scorer or tied top scorer, so it was pretty decent. I was pretty happy with that. I did well in the indoor season, other seasons as well. So my development was pretty good. Now it's sophomore year where I started experiencing some problems. Again, I was always a very talented player, but it started getting to my head a little bit the older I got. I had this kind of entitlement of like, oh, I'm just good, which means I don't need to really work or practice. And I never really had a coach or anybody really teach me work ethic or teach me to train often or teach me that I need to train all the time in order to really cultivate my talents. I never really had that kind of guidance. So I kind of had to figure that all out later. And I never really had that influence that was kind of encouraging me to work as hard as I can and to improve, my weaknesses and enhance my strengths and all that. I didn't really have that as a kid. I didn't really have that in high school either. I had some good coaches, but, they have a bunch of players to deal with. They can't just solely focus on me, So I started kind of getting a big-headed about it, feeling a little entitled about I should be playing every single minute. I'm better than these guys. I should be playing over these guys. I'm more talented than them. And sophomore year, I was on varsity, but I didn't get that much game time for many reasons. One was that attitude. It wasn't a good attitude to have. I thought like instead of working hard to start for varsity and working on my weaknesses and working on what would actually get me on the team, I spent more of my time complaining about not being on the team or not being a starter, right? I still got plenty of game time. I chipped in with a couple goals, but I thought I deserved for some reason more time, even though I didn't put in the work that would be required to do that. So that's a big mistake to avoid. I think I see it a lot with talented players like myself when I was a kid who think that their talent's going to carry them. And I really wish that I had learned early on that talent never beats hard work. Hard work always beats talent. It's always better if you're talented and work hard, but I just never clicked for me early on enough. It definitely clicked up for me later on, and we'll get into that. But just for you young guys out there, or anyone really, realize that no matter how talented you are, no matter how good you did in that last match, no matter what skills you can pull off, if you're not a hard worker and someone who's willing to learn, you won't make even your varsity high school team. You'll be on the bench. And you'll be wondering why you're not on the field. And don't think it's the coaches don't like you. Don't think it's anything like that. I mean, sometimes that does happen, and that's crappy, and I get it. But in my case, that was not the case. My coaches actually really liked me. I knew my coaches pretty well. The assistant coach, I knew since I was like 5. So, these weren't guys who had it out for me. They did want me to succeed. They did want me to be a good player, but I just wasn't putting in the work sophomore year. Now, another thing that contributed to me playing pretty poorly sophomore year is freshman year, I was 5 foot tall. And by sophomore year, when the season started, I was about 5'10". I grew about 10 inches in a year. And for any of you who've gone through massive growth spurts like that, it's not fun. It's very painful. It's very awkward. You kind of have to get used to your new body. It was like working with 2 left feet and 2 left hands. I was so uncoordinated. Many of the things I could do before I couldn't do. When I was smaller, I was really fast and quick. But when I grew taller, I was one of the slowest people on the pitch. So I had to kind of learn more foot skills and things like that. And actually, it's kind of good that that happened because I did learn more skills, more footwork and things like that because I wasn't able just to run past people anymore. So that didn't help. And it meant that I've had a very poor sophomore year. I scored 2 goals, but I wasn't getting the time I wanted, and I wasn't really, playing as well as I wanted. This was probably the first period in my life where, and I loved soccer. It was the first period in my life where I'd had like a bad year in the sense of I wasn't playing well, I wasn't getting minutes, I wasn't scoring goals, which used to be one of my best qualities. It was just a very, very bad year for me. Soccer-wise. So I kind of woke up a little bit after that, and going into my junior year, I was determined to do a lot better. I went to, I started going to camps and things, and actually I'd been going to soccer camps my whole life up until that point, But at the end of ninth grade, I started going to college soccer camps. There were some good colleges in the area, some D1, some D3 colleges that had camps, and I went there, and that definitely helped in my development. And it was always funny. I usually always did well at the camps, which later helped me actually get into a college team. But junior year came around, and the season we were predicted to do very well. We had a very good team. I was definitely a better player that year. We had a bunch of seniors who were really, really good. This was going to be our year. But unfortunately, it was disappointing. We didn't even make playoffs. I don't know what it was that really we struggled with. We just didn't gel. We didn't click. And we were just kind of dysfunctional and didn't get the results that we should have. There were teams we should have been beating that we weren't. And again, I was still in that phase of I was still working on my game a little bit more. I was dedicating more time to practice. I would always go out to this wall that was by my house and kick against it. And I was doing that for years, but now I was actually focusing on certain things. I wasn't just mindlessly doing it, because I used to go out and kick against this wall just because it was fun. Like, I liked to do it. I liked to play soccer. I liked to kick around. I liked to practice my skills. I liked to practice my first touch because it was fun to me. But now I was going to that wall and I was like, okay, I'm going to go 20 touches, good touches in this direction, then 20 good in this direction, then 20 chest controls. Then I'm going to hit it against the wall and make sure it doesn't hit the ground for this many reps, things like that. So like very focused training at this point, which really helped me improve. Now, my junior year, I didn't have a great season again for high school. It was a lot better than my sophomore year. I was starting. I was a starting player finally. Again, I only scored 2 goals. I was playing midfield, to be fair. I think for most of the time, I played a striker every now and then, but mainly midfield. But still, I was not happy with that because I just wasn't used to it. And I really knew now that I needed to do something because I was 15 or 16 at that point. I had ambitions of going pro or at least playing in college, and I wasn't playing at that level that I needed to. I was letting my talent go to waste, and I was starting to become aware of it. I was starting to become aware that I can't just get by with talent anymore. That worked when I was a kid. That worked when there was no physicality. That worked when, other kids that hadn't had time to work hard to become really good. But now the kids that were working hard were catching up to me and surpassing me, and it was time for me to really knuckle down. So that was the year I got a club team again. So at 16, I joined a club team, which was one of the best teams in the state. And from there, it improved my game massively. For you guys who are not in club teams, you get on the right club team, it can really elevate your game. The level of players, like the playing level is immense. It's great if you get on a good team. The competition in practices is really good. You're surrounded by really good players who are also dedicated to the game. It's none of this, oh, you play if you show up kind of thing. It's you play on merit. You don't play just because you're on the team and your parent gets angry if you don't play. None of that crap. It was you play if you're good. So that was good. We played teams that were ranked nationally, ranked state-wise, ranked regionally. So our competition was good. We were playing in college showcase tournaments, and we were winning them. So being on that team really helped. Being surrounded by serious, dedicated players who were really good, players who were at my level or higher, really helped improve my game. And that just goes to show, like, you need to challenge yourself. Don't be a big fish in a small pond, which means, like, if you're the best player on your team by a country mile, you probably need to start looking for a new team. It's just the way it goes. I mean, for example, if you look at the professional levels, if you look at a player who's like really good on like a team near the relegation, what usually happens if they're really good, they get transferred to a team that's more towards the top of the table because it's more of a challenge. They'll be challenging for more things. That's what you want to be doing constantly. You want to be putting yourself up against players who are as good or better than you, because that's how you're going to improve, because you're going to have to innovate, you're going to have to practice more and all this. So I joined that club team, and that's really when I started to improve a lot. And it was when I really started to have a coach who was really, really knew what he was doing. Now, my high school coach also knew what he was doing, but again, high school ball was a little less intensive. It was a little less kind of personalized, where club ball is, you're hand-picking players, right? And you're getting them from everywhere. And the coach actually, he approached me after seeing me play. Like, he hand-picked me technically, along with all the other players. So these are his players he's chosen. He wants them to succeed, and he was very good at coaching us. Practices were always fun. They were always challenging. They were always good. Individual training as well. He was a really good coach and really helped me to improve my game. So With that club team, we entered about 7 tournaments in the summer and we won 5 of them, which was amazing. We made the final of another one and lost in the final. So, I was back to winning things. I was back to playing well, scoring goals, being around players who were serious. I was having colleges interested in me, contacting me when they saw me play for my club team in these tournaments. So, becoming a much better period. 1 second, I'm just going to see how we're doing on time here. Okay, we're good. Now, let's hold back a little. We're still in 11th grade. One of the biggest things, again, that really helped me to improve that year is I was finally utilizing my talent. I was working hard. I was working on my talent. You'll be amazed, for those of you who are talented, when you start working hard, how much you improve and how quickly you improve as well. I was doing, in high school, in the off season, our coach would have speed training twice a week, and it wasn't mandatory. And I used to never go to them. 11th grade, I went to every single one. I was determined to beat every single record on every single exercise on it, and I actually hold some of them, I think, still to this day. I was determined to improve myself. I was determined to start making sure I was taking this seriously. I was determined to be practicing on my own as often as I could. Going out to that wall and practicing, going to all to my team trainings, playing in as many matches as possible. I was determined to do that. I was determined to watch professionals play and learn from them. And in fact, I learned, one of my best abilities now as a player is my shooting and finishing. Early on, it wasn't. My finishing was good when I was younger, but my shooting, like from distance, was terrible. My technique wasn't that great. I couldn't knuckle a ball. I couldn't hit a ball cleanly. I couldn't lock my ankle. In 11th grade, I learned how because I studied players who could. I think it was actually Cristiano Ronaldo. I kept watching a video by him over and over again, and I watched the way he would strike the ball, and I went, I've got it. I think I know what he's doing here. And I started practicing that. So now I could shoot well, I could finish well, and I was just working on all these aspects of my game to become a better player. So 11th grade was really that period where I started taking it more seriously. Started getting interest from coaches. So we'll stop there and say that's 11th grade was a really good year. Maybe not for high school ball, but for club it was great. For college contacts it was great for my own personal improvement. Now 12th grade was, again, another really good year. In pretty much all aspects for my soccer career. So we'll start in the summer. I attended some camps again, the same camps I usually attended. I did well at both of them. One of them was a college that was interested in signing me or recruiting me, and I did really well at the camp. So that was a good start. And basically, I was using the momentum from 11th grade into 12th grade for my high school season. Now, the problem with the high school season, our team wasn't that great simply because, like I said, my 11th grade year, we had a bunch of seniors. We must have had like 8 seniors starting, something like that. So they had all graduated, and there weren't really many players that were coming up to replace them. So we essentially had a JV squad, and the only returning varsity, there were like 3 returning varsity players, which was myself, my friend Jim, and I think another person on our team named Wesley. I might be missing 1 or 2, but those were the returning varsity players. And the rest were either coming up from JV or were just new players. So we didn't have the strongest team. Personally, I had a pretty good year though. I scored 8 goals, which, considering we only scored 12 goals in total as a team, was pretty good. I got first team all league. I think I almost made all state, but that was going to be quite a tough task when we weren't winning any games. So I had it was my best year for high school, definitely up until that point. I was very proud of the season. And although it wasn't great having a pretty average team that I was playing on, it taught me a lot of things. My dribbling ability improved because I was asked to dribble a lot more and beat players one-on-one. My shooting improved. I was taking free kicks and penalties. I was shooting on sight. I was scoring free kicks. My energy levels had improved. My first touch had improved from 11th grade and my club team. And it was just an overall good high school season, and club ball continued, and we were doing really well still with my club team. So at this point, I'm training much more. I'm really more dedicated. I'm aware now, better late than never, that talent isn't the only thing that's going to make me get to that level. I'm starting to play in a way that makes me think I really can go pro. I really can play college and be a star player in college. I'm starting to play that way, and I know as long as I keep working hard and I'm dedicated, that I definitely can do something with this. So basically, we're going to recap real quick. We, just a few ideas for you guys to keep in mind. One is, if you're talented, please work hard. That was my biggest mistake as a youngster. Again, I didn't have people coming to me saying I need to do that. I didn't have people showing me how to do it. But I didn't have YouTube people who were coming to me saying, or I was watching their videos saying, you got to work hard, you got to have this and that. I was very, very just kind of going through the motions and wasn't training as hard as I should be or should have been. And that hurt me a lot. Like I don't always imagine, but sometimes I think, what type of player would I have been had I, from the very beginning, been a hardworking player? And sometimes I think if I had, I would be at the professional level today. Now I don't know that, and I'm not trying to play the whole, oh, what if game, because I'm still very determined to improve myself now in this moment and to move on to the professional levels now. I'm not using that as an excuse, but I want you to learn from that and see, don't be someone who has to look back and say, what if? You don't want to be that. If you're 12, 13, however old right now, start now, right? Start working hard now. Even if you're not the most talented player, you can make up for it with hard work. There are plenty of players who weren't necessarily the most talented players who have surpassed talented players because of how hard they worked. I mean, there are many players who probably were not as talented as I am who have far surpassed what I've achieved in the game so far. And that's no accident. That's because they work hard, they're disciplined, they're dedicated. It helps to have talent, but it's not going to be the main driving force that's going to help you get to where you want to go, right? So that's the main lesson I want you to take away from this. Many people's stories are stories of hard work coming from people who admittedly say they're less talented in hard work, becoming pro, and I love those stories. Mine's a little different. Mine's a different way to learn this lesson, because I'm coming from a place of having been that kid who was really talented, to where coaches were paying attention to me and all this stuff, to having not worked hard enough for whatever reasons, for many reasons really, to have not worked hard enough and it hurting me, right? So luckily I learned my lesson. I'm not sitting here before you today saying, you know what, I don't need to work hard. I'm talented. I don't need to, work for my success. No, I'm sitting here telling you, you do need to. That nothing, not even with just speaking about soccer, but nothing in life comes easily. Nothing you want at least comes easily. And I'm assuming if you're watching this, you want to play at a high level, you want to play collegiately, you want to play professionally maybe even, and even look beyond that. Maybe you want to play at the top level of professional leagues. I mean, don't think big. Maybe you want to play in the Premier League. Maybe you want to play in the Spanish La Liga, the German Bundesliga. Maybe you want to play for your national team. Think big, guys. Because even if you think big, so for example, you think, I want to play for Arsenal in the Premier League and I want to be a star for them. I want to be one of their main players. You think big and you start going towards that goal. Even if you don't reach that goal, dude, you're going to get something. I'm telling you, you're going to get something. Because if you work hard towards that goal, you have the idea of where you're going, you do everything possible to get to it, I very much believe you will do something great. Okay, and you might even hit that goal too. You might even hit it. So, guys, this has been part one. I think because we're at like 20 something minutes now, I'll do part two. So part two will be more of like college, basically to now. So that'll be more current stuff. So basically you have my kind of soccer background. Please, definitely use this to learn. Definitely use this to become a better player yourself. If you're a talented player and you were in the same situation I was in, where you're not working quite as hard as you think you should, really reassess what you're doing and start doing that. Start putting in that effort. Start working hard. Because I'm telling you, you can become such a great player, but you need to put in the effort. You need to have the discipline, and you can look at the numerous examples of people who have worked hard to become pros or high-level college players or whatever, right? Don't be like I was when I was a kid. Don't be that player who thinks he's going to make it on talent alone and then get frustrated when less talented players who are harder workers are playing above you. Because if they've worked harder than you, they deserve to be playing above you. It's that simple. Okay, guys, so thank you for watching. Again, hit that like and that subscribe button. If you're brand new to Simply Soccer, thanks for listening to my story, or at least half my story. The rest will come probably next week. And make sure you look out for part 2 of how to be a standout player. If you have not seen part 1, make sure you watch part 1. We go over a lot of great stuff. Right now, my face should be covered by the subscribe button and a couple videos you can click on to watch some more material. But anyway, guys, stay tuned for next week where I go over part 2, where we go over more of the recent stuff I've been doing soccer-wise. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope I didn't miss anything. I have a feeling that once I turn this off, I'm going to be like, oh, I completely missed when I was 12 and this happened, or when I was 10 and this happened. But maybe I'll mention it next week if I do. All right, guys, so this has been for 10,000 subscribers. This is my, basically my youth career history. Please make sure you take the lessons to heart, and I'll see you on the next video.